So there would have been some of you. We've been farting around with this thing for how long now, Avery? It's been 16 minutes.
25 minutes.
Oh, well, yeah, it seems like forever. Been messing
Yep.
around trying to get this thing up and running on primarily I wanted to do it to Facebook, but we weren't able to. So there were some people waiting. So no one's waiting now. So be it. End of story. We are now live. So this is even more exciting than I thought before. So one of the things that we were going to talk about today, which is of primary interest, is the fact that we're going to have a conversation around child protection. And the reason why this is important for Avery and I is because Avery now runs the Child Protection Party. I was involved in the Child Protection Party for a number of years. I founded the Child Protection Party along with Avery's help. Avery stayed, I retired. So, and Avery, it's about time you bloody retire. I'll bring you up online so everybody can see how handsome you are. There you go.
You want to scare them off?
No, so the point was that we both started this child protection party to help people who had children in care.
Yeah.
To challenge the system, I guess. To change. Would you agree with that? To change the
Yeah,
system.
absolutely.
That was
The
our
whole
goal,
aim,
wasn't it?
the whole aim was to get somebody elected initially into the SA Parliament, where we could then work to change the SA legislation, ideally get people into parliaments around the country for exactly the same purpose, to change the legislation in those states. And we were also advocating for federal legislation over child protection, but it being a state issue, with the likelihood of ever getting the federal government to do anything is extremely small, particularly because back in the Howard era, he put it to the COAG. I don't think it was called COAG at the time, but he put it to COAG that the federal government should take over the child protection role, federally fund it, and it would be administered by the states. And every state premier and territory chief minister said, "No, you just want to usurp state responsibilities." And as a result, here we are, 22 years later, something like that. Excuse me. We've still got 8 systems, 8 states and territories, 8 different systems, 8 different views on what is abuse, neglect, things like that. 8 different ways of dealing with it instead of a uniform approach right across the country.
And I think
And
one
that
of one of the things that's always fascinated me is that no matter what system or what state you're in and what system they adopt, all are dysfunctional. Like
yeah,
they're as dysfunctional as the people that they're supposedly working with. So it's dysfunctional people running a dysfunctional organisation, which is trying to assist people that are ostensibly dysfunctional in many ways to better improve their lives. And all those dysfunctions don't work. That's the
yeah.
issue, I think.
I would go as far as to say that some of the people that administer the system, particularly in the higher offices, the CEOs of the DCP or DFFH, for example, are more dysfunctional than the people that they're supposed to be helping.
Yeah.
The people who've got kids in care.
And of course, my primary concern always been, as a social worker myself working in that space, I have been continually disappointed in the quality of social work services that have been offered and spent, however long it's been since we started. Well, before CPP was even created, I was bashing my head against my other colleagues who just were behaving in ways that I thought were inappropriate, unhelpful, disadvantaged clients, didn't care about clients, didn't care about kids, because the system itself, by removing children, often when they shouldn't remove children, created problems for the children that they could have avoided by simply having been more committed to helping and working with parents. So
Yeah. Well, one thing to note is that an awful lot of minor parties get created, right? The Child Protection Party was created 10 years ago last month.
was
Most
it
minor parties, yeah.
that? And it
most
seems
minor
like
parties
yesterday, Avery.
don't say most minor parties don't last 10 years. You
Oh,
know,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, we've been around for 10 years. It's a sad thing to me that when we've asked people for money to help run what we do, no interest. If we were asking for money for kittens and puppies, money floods in. But kids, they're not interested.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
the media is only ever interested when a kid gets killed,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
And this is one of the things we want to talk about today.
And if and it's only it occupies the front page for
Yeah,
a couple of
2 or 3
days, and then
days.
it disappears to page 3, and then it disappears altogether. And everybody's up in arms about the damage that's done to children. But I think the biggest problem with this is that people tend to think that there's a lot of mother blaming going on. These people don't deserve the help that they get, and because most of the people that are under the view or under the eye of the child protection system come from low socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yeah,
So they're not worthy of attention,
yeah.
and this
It's
distresses me greatly because, as I've worked with these people now for 20 years, I suppose, they're great people. They shouldn't be devalued anymore simply because they've got issues in their lives that interfere with the care of kids. We as a society should say, well, okay, maybe we need to work with these families a little bit closer so that they can have continual care of their children. And this is what we've been hammering on about, haven't we, for 10 years
10 years.
now. Yeah.
10 years, 1 month. Yeah, we're in our 11th year now. It was actually 1 year after you founded it that I joined, but I wasn't
but
one of the
you've been
co-founders.
an integral part, though, of
Thank
what
you.
we've done. So for those people that are watching this video later on, how about just a bit of a plug, Avery, for CPP? You can tell them how they can go about joining, I guess.
Yeah, well, if anybody's interested in joining us, they're more than welcome. We're looking for members in every state and territory so that we can register the party in those states. In South Australia, we were registered until last year. We had to deregister because we couldn't get sufficient signatures to say, yeah, we support the ongoing registration of the party. We decided that we would, that the Electoral Commission said, well, we'll give you an extra week. And our response to that was that, well, we couldn't get 200 in 8 weeks. What makes you think we're going to get the extra 50 we need in one? So we deregistered voluntarily. And we're going through a complete revamp of policies and stuff like that. What we're doing right now is looking to recruit members. It costs $20 a year. You can go to childprotection.party and just click the join button. The other thing we're looking for is people in every state and territory who are willing to join our team and work to build a team in your state, your territory, and then work there towards recruiting sufficient numbers in your state or territory to register the party there. The registration fees are not for membership, but depending upon the state, the registration fees range from free to $1,500, I think it is now, to register a party in New South Wales. The numbers we need in each state vary based upon the population. 100 in Tasmania, 750 in or 500 or 750, I can't remember exactly, in New South Wales. With New South Wales being the most populous state, you'd expect that sort of
The point, the point too is that there is, it always has been a great disappointment from you and I and others that have been in the party that given the necessity for advocacy for parents and children, not just parents, the way they're treated in care is another issue altogether. And it's just scanty, isn't it? I mean, it's just that people, and I'm still confused as to why people don't care. It's about children. Why wouldn't you care?
Yeah. It goes back to what you just said a few minutes ago. They look at the parent and say, well, they deserve it. She must be a a prostitute. She must be a drug addict. He must be violent. And that's not necessarily the case.
No, it isn't. It isn't the
Or
case
he's
in
a
every case.
paedophile. And that's
But
paedophile rarely the case.
but even if you take the parents out of it, and you just focus on forget the parents, how about the well-being of children?
Yeah.
Let's focus on that. You know,
department-
these children not only are disadvantaged sometimes because of the families in which they've lived, they're disadvantaged because the system fails to care about them.
Yeah.
Fails to be the parent. So if you've got those attitudes towards parents, put them aside for a moment. Let's think about changing a system that's more respectful of children. That would be good.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll launch into this story and we'll talk about this. This is maybe all we'll do today, I don't know. But this is a story that was on 7:30 report, I think, initially. But it's a story about a woman, a young woman by the name of Jade Struce, who was involved with a family that had very strong religious ties. And part of their religious belief was that that they didn't believe in medical help because they believed that if they prayed, they would receive whatever it was they needed through that prayer, and a child would be healed. That was their basic belief. Now, this particular person, Jade, was the eldest of this family, and she, because she's gay, she felt she couldn't remain within the family, so she left at a relatively early age, 16 I think it was. But she talks a little bit about, so what happened was she left the family, she was the eldest, she felt responsible for the kids, and her mother had was actually jailed at one point for having for neglect, basically, of these children. So she was jailed, she was released, and then she was sent back to the home. She was allowed to go back to the home and parent these kids, so to speak, by the department. And our issue with that is that, why was she allowed to go back? This is a failure of the system. This is why Avery and I were talking about that stuff earlier. So that's the basic outline. But I'm going to read you the article so that you can have a better sense as to what this is all about, and Avery can become a part of this conversation as we go through it. Jade says she and her siblings were subject to corporal punishment from their mother, sometimes with bamboo sticks, when they misspoke, had our own opinions, or stepped out of line. It was correct.
Can I Tony?
You can make comment. I know you want to make comment about that punishment stuff.
I certainly do. My view is that corporal punishment is child abuse. I don't believe that any child should be smacked because they misspoke, or beaten with a cane because they had their own opinions or they stepped out of line. I can't think of any offence that a child could commit that warrants beating them.
Yeah, and also Jade goes on to describe, I guess, what you're saying there is how it made her feel. She says it was corrected immediately with the rod of correction, is what I would always hear. It was humiliating, which I think is what you're saying. It was shame. It made me feel really small, like I couldn't be me. And I think that's a good summary, don't you, Avery, of what
I do.
The impact.
And the rod of correction, that comes straight out of the Bible. Spoil the rod, spare the rod and spoil the child. Sparing the rod doesn't spoil the child. It brings up children who, in my view, don't learn that violence is an appropriate response to some sort of misdemeanor.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. Appropriate love and affection really is the best antidote for
Absolutely
helping a child. As the eldest child, she said the hardest part was watching her siblings being punished. When you cry after being smacked, you're smacked again until you don't cry, and you push those feelings down and you conform to their beliefs, Jay said, of life at home. It was very challenging to watch my little sisters and brothers go through that. She's so this is when and I think she left when she was about 16. For years, Jane only had intermittent contact with her family. Yeah?
Jade, not Jane.
Jade. Sorry, Jade.
Yeah.
On the 17th of July 2019, Jade was in a Brisbane cinema when she received a text message from her dad asking her to call. I got out of there and called him, and he's like, I'm about to get in the helicopter, she says. Your sister Elizabeth is in a coma and she's got type 1 diabetes. Elizabeth, who was 6 years old at the time, was being choppered from the Toowoomba Base Hospital to the Queensland Children's Hospital in Brisbane. Jade was taken straight to intensive care to see Elizabeth. What she saw was devastating. So remember, she'd been out of the home for a bit. She was attached to so many different cords and wires, and there was a tube down her throat keeping her alive. I thought, how did this happen? How did we get here? So this was before the parents or the mother was jailed. So Elizabeth weighed only 13 kilograms. The average weight of a child of her age was 21 kilograms. She says, at the time, we thought it might have been an honest mistake, but I think that was the early warning signs that he cared about his marriage, he's talking about the dad, more than perhaps the safety and well-being of his child. Queensland Department of Child Safety launched an investigation while Elizabeth was in hospital. A paediatrician told the department Kerry Struce needed an involuntary mental health assessment, and Elizabeth would never be safe in a home with her mother. And that's important to remember, given what's happened later. The department monitored Elizabeth's safety in a voluntary agreement with her parents, but closed the case around 4 months later. In 2021, Kerry Struce was jailed for 5 months for failing to provide the necessity of life. She was neglecting the child. Jason Struce pleaded guilty to the same offence, testified against his wife, and escaped jail time. He was then left alone to work and care. So he explained this to me, Avery, because I think this is an interesting point. He was left to look after these kids after he was found guilty for the same crime, but because he testified against his wife, who the department saw as the main problem, he got to go home and look up after his kids.
Well, the reason that would have happened is because without his testimony, they might not have got the conviction. And if they believe that she made the cause of the problem, then to get her convicted, they need that testimony.
But this man was ineffectual because he was later, as it says here, during this time his wife, the Saints, which is this cult, and his adult son Zachary encouraged him to convert. So he then converted to the religion.
The thing is that you asked about why did he not get punished as well. The reason, as I said, is most likely because a cooperating witness will be given a deal of some sort. So you cooperate, we won't send you to jail like we want to do with the mother. As far as what they should have then done is say, but the kids, they're going into care, and they're going to be fostered and possibly adopted away because neither of you deserve to have those children. And if that had happened, this little girl might still be alive.
Yeah, and that's true, and that's part of the problem. In the months that followed, the Saints encouraged Jason to believe that Elizabeth did not need insulin to survive and to trust in God. So on the 15th of December, her mother was released from prison on parole, moving back. So she was released from prison for neglect and then was allowed to come back into the family home. The next day, Kerry Struce told her parole officer of Elizabeth becoming unwell. I would make the same decision again, but I wouldn't stop any other person interfering. And there's some videos of her saying this on their website too. On the 3rd of January, Jason Struce stopped giving Elizabeth insulin, so this is the dad, wrongly believing that a low reading on her glucometer was a sign from God, telling his daughter, you don't need it anymore. Over the next few days, Elizabeth became gravely ill as members of the Saints visited and prayed at her bedside. No one sought medical treatment. Elizabeth died in early hours of Friday, January the 7th, 2021. Now, when the criminal So this is completely unnecessary. This child, had the department become involved earlier, or no, had the department stayed involved, I should say, this child would probably still be alive today. But because they neglected their role in looking after this family, a child died. And the thing that disturbs me and has disturbed you, Avery, I know for years, is the lack of response from a department where they are culpable for what actually happened for this child and don't take responsibility.
When,
So
the,
it goes
when
on
the
to say,
department takes
sorry,
when the department takes a child into care, they're adopting a duty of care. When the mother gets released from prison and is allowed to go back into the family home, they are the child might still be nominally in the care of the department, but by allowing her to go back into the home, they are being negligent in their duty of care.
Yeah.
Because she is the cause of the problems that the little girl had. She was one of the ones that was beating the children with a cane and things like that. And they say, yeah, it's okay for you to go back. What do they think is going to happen? Right?
Well,
the fact that this woman is a Christian does not mean she's a good person. And her behaviour there prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality too is that that the department should take responsibility for their poor decision, which has caused this child to die at the end of the day. It goes on to say anyway, with the criminal trial finished, Jade's next battle is a civil claim. This is the eldest daughter. Against Queensland's Department of Child Safety, alleging, and this is what we're saying, that it failed in its duty of care for Elizabeth. Jade believes it was too readily accepted that Jason Struths would be capable of being the sole carer of her sister's health after Elizabeth's hospitalisation in 2019. She says, I don't think any of the investigations considered that he would be under enormous pressure to not do the natural care and that he needed to do for her. The fact that he delayed in the first place was a huge sign to say that he was worried about a lot of other things before Elizabeth. In other words, he was concentrating on other stuff. He wasn't concentrating on Elizabeth. Jade also feels that the system failed to monitor her mother closely enough when she was released. They shouldn't have allowed her in there in the first place. It's not just about monitoring.
I'd like a bit more on what. Can you just go back to
that? Jade also feels that the system failed the mother. That one.
Can you scroll down a little bit? No, it's not that one. It's the scroll up is what I meant. Yeah, so I can see that block. The bit about enormous pressure. Right, there's religious cults, which is what the saints are, who say that God will deliver. God will look after that, after you. You pray and God will provide. The Bible says that God will provide. What you ask for, if two people ask for it, it will happen. Jesus says that in the New Testament. Well, he couldn't say it in the Old Testament. He didn't exist then. In the United States, there's an evangelical organization called the Templeton Foundation, and they conducted scientific research where they had three groups of people. I think it was three, but anyway, there's around 10,000 people took part, and they had to say intercessory prayers, which is what these people were doing. Struths and his Jason and Kerry, whatever the name is, were doing intercessory prayers to this God that they can't prove exists, to fix her diabetes. What the Templeton Foundation did was they told that it was people that were suffering from cardiac problems. There were the 10,000 participants were told pray for them, right? With half of the people that were being prayed for, they told them that that intercessory prayers were being said on their behalf, and the other half weren't told. when the results were published, and kudos to an evangelical Christian organization who were doing it, their results showed that intercessory prayer worked at a rate no better than chance, and that for the people who knew that intercessory prayer was being said for them, they fared worse than those that didn't. And their argument was that intercessory prayer, if the people know it's being said, they give up. They say, well, I don't need to fight because God's going to sort me out. And God did. He killed them. He let them die.
Well, clearly in this case, God was not very helpful at all.
He's not very helpful.
Sorry.
22 million children starved to death in 2022. God did nothing about that.
That's right. That's right. With the criminal trial finished, Jade's next battle is civil claim.
We just did that bit.
Sorry, mate?
We just did this bit.
Sorry, I'm back. You got me to go up there. That's right.
Yeah.
In a written response, the Queensland's Department of Child Safety said the child is deemed in need of protection if they do not have a parent who is willing and able to protect them. Well, clearly they didn't have a parent that was able to protect them, either one, for that matter.
Yep.
We remain committed to ensuring that the state's child protection system is as effective as possible. Jade's Truth wants more to be done, though, especially when it comes to prevention. It sounds like Child Protection Party, doesn't it? I want preventative measures. I want them to think ahead or fund the system better so that there's more people and less loads on the officers themselves coming in trying to investigate what's going on for children, Jade says. I want some accountability taken that these systems did fail, and it's ultimately failing children that desperately need help. A coronial inquest into Elizabeth Stru's death has been announced, and, need I say, rightfully so. So I think, Avery, I don't know if you want to, this is probably the only topic we'll talk about today because we've choosed up a fair bit of time, but it's an important topic though, nevertheless, because it's about children's well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of, I mean, this family is not atypical of not Christianity as a whole, because most Christians go to the doctors when they're ill. They go to the doctor. They might pray, but they go to the doctor as well. Right? Their kid is sick. They pray, but they go to the doctor as well. But you get cults like this, who are, to me, they are the worst of Christians. I don't like Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism. I don't care what religion it is. I've got no time for any of them. But these particular flavors of Christianity, they make me want to throw up. They claim to love their kids, and then they do something like that. A kid needs insulin, and they get nothing happens to, they don't get the insulin they need. The kid dies. In the United States, Idaho is one of the most red states of the lot, and what they started doing about a year or 18 months ago, the first of these happened. A family just like the Strus let their kid die because she needed it. The kid needed insulin. God will sort it out. The kid died. The state prosecuted them for manslaughter, negligent homicide. I think was what they, and then they convicted them, and they're in prison now. They got about 25 years. We need to look at that sort of thing here. If you say I'm not going to take my kid to the doctor because God will sort them out, and God's method of sorting them out is to let them die, no, go to prison for it. You don't deserve to have those children.
And so what's worse then? The fact that the system, that someone behaves in this way, anybody who neglects a child, forget about the religious shit for a moment, but anyone who neglects a child and that child dies needs to be punished. There's very few cases, funnily enough, in Australia where, I mean, this was one of them where the mother was charged with neglect. But there are very few cases where it criminally can be determined to be neglect. So I think the neglect thing is pretty high bar. So, but there's but then, given what you just said, where is the department in terms of their responsibility and their lack of intervention that could have saved his child's life. I think that is just as bad, just as
Yeah.
nefarious as what the family did.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Both sides neglected her.
yeah, to be fair to the department, they are overworked, underpaid.
That's no
Um,
excuse. So
no,
parents are
they're
also under a lot of stress and strain, and they don't have enough money to pay for food, economy, all that
they're
sort of shit. Parents are the
they're
same thing.
overworked. They're overworked, underpaid. Often they are the people that are doing the care workers themselves, the social workers themselves, are freshly unwrapped from the university,
True.
no life experience,
True.
and they've got processes that they've got to follow, which you know need review and revision. But if you get somebody who's 22 years old, no life experience at all, the previous 3-4 years was was at university, however long they take to get that degree, what can they really offer? Because the practicality is very often different from the theory.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think that, you know, I like say, Avery, to people, look, I did a 4-year degree. Um, I I walked into a on my third year, and I did my first placement. It was a child protection centre system, family and youth services. It was back then, and I could see. I came into uh, came into the lunchroom one day, and they were calling their clients, that is the parents, ferals, and I went right off at them. Like I just blew my stack, and they couldn't believe it. I was a mature age student, so I guess I had legitimacy. But
Yeah,
I could see as a student that what they were doing was wrong. And I've had over the years, I've had people contact me who had just left the service or are thinking of leaving child protection services, who see what's happening. So there are people that have just left university or whatever, and were like I was. They could see that the system is dysfunctional. They see that they're labelling, categorising, they're blaming people, they're doing all the things that social workers should not do. And but the point is, and I've said this to you 1,000 times, the dysfunctional people within the child protection system rise to the top. The
yeah,
people that want to do the right thing, that know what is the right thing to do, leave.
yeah,
And it's as simple as that.
yeah.
And
And the way the state premiers and chief ministers choose their child protection minister, to me, leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, here in SA, the previous child protection minister, her qualifications was that she ran a beauty agency or a modelling agency. In Victoria, they had a guy called Luke. That was Rachel Sanderson. In Victoria, they had a uh, child protection minister whose qualifications was he was an electrician or a plumber. Valuable work. We need electricians and plumbers. He should have
or
stayed doing that.
maybe we need Elon Musk. You know,
We
he's
need
got
him.
stacks of kids.
We need
He's
him. We need him in the same way that we need cancer.
well, he is a cancer though. He's a
He
cancer.
is. There's one thing I'd like to say as well. It's about Jade. Is it Jade, the daughter?
Yeah,
Jade Straw.
Jade.
I don't know if she's going to see this. Uh, I don't know if anybody that knows her sees this, but if she does or they do, I would really love it if they would ask her or if she would choose to write to me, secretary at childprotection.party, so we can talk about it. I
Yeah,
would
good
love
point.
to do that.
And I would like to put a video together and interview her about her total
Yeah,
experiences as well, and do a documentary on her. It would be good
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's what I do.
yeah.
Okay, Avery, look, thanks for that chat. I'm sorry that it just focused on that one issue. I had other issues to talk about, but that'll do for today.
Yeah.
There'll be plenty to talk about next week. And there might be an addition to this subject matter as well. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I really
You've
appreciate
got
the
me all,
time.
you've got me all fired up now.
We are. I am in particular. I know you are as well, because it's a topic that interests us and has been dominating our life experiences for quite a while. So thanks,
Yeah.
Avery. I'll catch you in a few seconds.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to everybody out there, take care, look after yourself. If any of these issues concern you, you can call Lifeline, and there's a child protection help. There's a child helpline as well, and you can certainly get in contact with Avery through the Child Protection Party. So in the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.
Like and subscribe.